Johnny is such a great singer, such a good guy, an athlete too. I always liked that about Johnny, and we compared notes on about our love for athletics. And he loves to play basketball, loves to golf now. But he'd been, I think, a high jumper, maybe hurdler on a track team in San Francisco. So he came on the show, and we were going to close the show with "Let There Be Peace on Earth." Let there be peace on earth, and let it begin with me. And doing it together. And the way it was staged was another big bear, no props, no sets, anything except a ladder for some reason. In the back of this cavernous studio was a door opened with a bright light shining. So I thanked Johnny for being on, and now we're going to close the show. And the way it was staged was we're up against this ladder, but I'm standing on a couple of rungs above Johnny. And I don't know why that was, but I didn't like it, but I didn't question it. But I knew there was the problem down south with the Chevy dealers. So this might have been a little insensitive to that, but when we went on the air live, I just forgot to go up on that couple rungs on the ladder. I stayed standing on the floor with Johnny. We're about the same height. So we sang, "Let There Be Peace on Earth. Let it begin with me. Good night, folks." And we turn and walk away from the camera toward that bright light at the back of the studio. And I just sort of casually threw my arm over his shoulder as we walked toward that bright light. Now, to me, I thought that was a very subtle, nice statement. We're buddies. We're brothers in music. And we like each other. So we're friends. And we did get repercussions, and that did lead then to more concern on the part of some of the customers down south for Chevrolet. And it was something we just had to contend with. And being from the South, I understood it, but I felt like you would maybe do some subtle things. I was asked to come to South Africa. This wasn't so subtle. Nobody knew about this. But in the heat of my career in 1960, I was asked to come to South Africa. They were offering me all kinds of money, but I'd heard about this policy called apartheid. And I said, "Look, guys, I can't tell you how to run your country. You've got your problems. We've had our problems, but if people can't have money and want to come hear me sing, it will be forbidden because of cultural or racial or skin color or any other reason. I can't do it. I'm sorry." So I turned them down a couple times. But again, we had a closed-door meeting, and the promoters that were wanting me to come said, "Look, you got to keep this quiet, no publicity, but the administration, the government in South Africa is willing to suspend the policy for your concerts of apartheid if there will be no publicity about it." I said, "So anybody who wants to buy a ticket can come see me sing?" "Okay, I'll do it." So in 1960, I toured South Africa, starting in Durban, went on to Cape Town, Pretoria, Johannesburg, I forget a couple other big cities in South Africa. Death threats, because the word was out that it would be mixed audiences, which was really forbidden. But the government lifted the policy, and we never had any real incidents. We, as I say, had death threats and increased security. But we just went through the shows, and I sang "This Land Is Mine," Exodus, that I'd just written the words for. And I said, this is, thought of as about Israel, and it is, but I mean it to be sung by anybody who loves his country, anybody, inferring black, white, Indian, colored, yellow, whatever, as long as he or she loves his country. And so I sang Exodus, "This land is mine," God, and for them. And even up in Salisbury, Northern Rhodesia, no incident. And they said after the concert there that it was the first day in weeks that there'd been no violence. And so I came home, never talked about it for 30 years, because that was the agreement. But now, of course, apartheid is no more.
Do you think that your personal approach to race relations at least helped to pave the way for change later?
Jesse Jackson made a comment the other day, fairly recently, about a year ago. Stunned me, really. because I had not seen it this way. But I was on their radio station with his daughter, Santita. I had just done an album of rhythm and blues classics with the original performers, with Smokey Robinson, the Four Tops, Earth, Wind and Fire, Sister Sledge, Kool and the Gang, and even went to Augusta, Georgia, and recorded Papa's Got a Brand New Bag with James Brown. He said, "Hey, hey, Pat's got a brand new bag." And so I was promoting the album on the radio station in Chicago, and Jesse came on. And we talked a bit about Red Foley, about how they loved Red Foley on WLS in Chicago when he was there. And then we heard about Pat Boone, his son-in-law, and we liked him too a lot, his music. And he said then he began to record rhythm and blues songs by artists like Little Richard and Fats Domino and Chuck Berry and Ivory Joe Hunter and the Flamingos and on and on. And he said, I believe Pat Boone did more for race relations through his music than any other performer. And I couldn't believe he was saying that, because I'm thinking Stevie Wonder, Ray Charles, on and on and on, Motown. But he said when Pat Boone sang those songs, it was at a time when our music was called race music, and the pop audiences had no regard for it at all, or for the performers. But when white bread Pat Boone out of Nashville is doing these songs and they're becoming hits, he's saying, I like this music, and not only that, I like the performers too. And he said it melted a lot of people's prejudices about the singers and the music, and it made it acceptable to a big white audience. And I knew that some of that was true, but to hear Jesse Jackson say he thought that my doing those songs had done more to improve race relations than any other music performer. Because the others that came along, was after the resistance had been broken down, and so who wouldn't like Stevie Wonder? Who wouldn't like Michael Jackson? Who wouldn't like Ray Charles, or the Supremes, or Smokey, or anybody? Even though there'd be a residual, some dislike somewhere. But I hadn't really realized till then the significance of my doing those songs when I did them, and coming from where I came from and being who I was. So I'm happy about that.